Welcome back, everyone. I'm so glad that you joined me today because we are going to talk about purgatory. Does it actually exist? In the last few weeks, I posted some videos on my channel here about hell. Does it actually exist? What about the rich man and Lazarus? So today I want to talk about this issue of purgatory, specifically as it relates to 1 Corinthians 3:15, which is a passage that is used in the Catechism of the Catholic Church to support the idea of purgatory. Is that actually what it teaches or not? Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I am not a Catholic. I happen to be a Baptist, and so I don't believe in purgatory, but the denomination I'm in doesn't affect what I believe. I want everything that I believe to come out of the Bible. So we're going to look at this and see what exactly does it teach in 1 Corinthians 3:15. One thing we have to do, though, before we actually get into it, is we have to understand something about the Catholic idea of sin. Now, if you're a Catholic watching this, I'm going to try to be very honest with this and just share the things that I have studied and listened to podcasts and videos and things about the Catholic Church. So this is an understanding of the Catholic idea of sin, because that will help us then to understand what is for. And I put together this graphic that I want to show you. Here it is right here. They have three ways of looking at sin. There's different types of sin, okay? First is what is called original sin. This is the sin that everyone's born with. It's sin that is inherited from Adam. You remove this by baptism, which generally, of course, would be sprinkling, and that allows a person to become friends with God. So you've got to experience baptism in order to remove the guilt of original sin. And next then is mortal sin. Mortal sin is very serious sin. This is sin that removes a person from friendship with God, resulting in eternal punishment, so they no longer can have eternal life. Now, to be involved in mortal sin, it requires it has three requirements here. One is grave matter. It has to be grave. Number two, it has to be done in full knowledge. And number three, with deliberate consent. Okay, that is listed in Catechism 1857. The only way to remove this mortal sin is to go to confession, to have confession. So those are the really serious sins. But then you have this issue of what is called venial sin. Venial sins are less serious sins. They only have two of the three qualifications that would qualify sin as mortal sin. So these are a little less serious, but something still has to be done with it. Mortal sin has eternal ramifications. Venial sin has temporal punishment, which means it is punishment that happens in time. Now, it's not an eternal thing. So you don't necessarily lose your eternal salvation through venial sins, according to Catholic theology, but you do have to have some kind of punishment for it. And that's where purgatory comes in. Purgatory is the way to purge a person from venial sins that still exist after the person dies. So our question here then is, does purgatory actually exist? Now, I want to point this out. If you've grown up in a Protestant religion or something like that, you probably think of purgatory as something that nobody wants to do, right? It's, man, we don't want anything to do it, just like we would understand hell. But Catholics don't understand purgatory that way. To a Catholic, purgatory is something that's beautiful because they approach this with the right heart. They so much want to be able to be in good fellowship with God. They want so much to please God that they look forward, many of them anyway, they look forward to purgatory as a place of being purged. Now, that's what purgatory means. It's purging. It's not necessarily punishment for sin, but it's purging for sin. You die with some of these venial sins, and they have to be purged from you before you can enter the presence of God. So if you start watching videos and talking to Catholics, you might find out that they actually, not that this is going to be a fun time, but they so much want to please God that they are good with this. It's a beautiful thing for them to go and be purged so then they can enter purely into the presence of God. And there's so much I think that we could say about it, but what I really just want to do in this video is look at 1 Corinthians 3:15. In Catechism 1031, it discusses purgatory, and one of the verses it uses to support it is 1 Corinthians 3:15. So we're just going to look at this and see, what is that actually talking about? Is it talking about purgatory, or is it talking about something else? So the context of this passage is that Paul is talking about how we all have a job in building the kingdom of God. We have different skills, we have different opportunities, and we are all going to receive rewards, not based upon our results, but based upon what we do with our skills and opportunities that we have. So Paul says, you know what my job is? My job is to lay the foundation. And other people will come along then, and they will do different things to build upon that foundation, whatever God gave them to do. So that's the background here. So with that in mind, let's look at this passage, 1 Corinthians 3, verse 12. It says, now, if anyone builds on this foundation, that is the foundation of Jesus that Paul was building, with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become clear, for the day will declare it, because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test each one's work of what sort it is. If anyone's work which he has built on it endures, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned, he will suffer loss, yet he himself will be saved, yet so as through fire. So according to Catholic theology, this is indicative of a time after a person dies when they will experience this time of fire, which then will purge themselves of their sins, and then they can enter the presence of God. But as I read this, I don't see that, okay? I just want to point out to you three things about this passage where it will show us that this is not talking about purgatory. And again, like I said, there are other things that we can use to discredit the idea of purgatory. But here's one right here. This passage itself simply is not about that. So let's look at this. Three things. Number one, this passage that we're talking about here is an analogy. It's simply an analogy. Well, how do we know that? One of the things is because it says that in verse 14 that a person's work will endure if it's a good work, because it will go through fire. It's all about a person's work being burned. How can you burn a work? A work is not a tangible thing. It's something that you do. It's intangible. And then in verse 12, it refers to works as gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw. If this was not an analogy, if this was actually a literal thing, that means when you're standing there, you're actually seeing wood, straw, hay, stones, all these being put in the fire. Well, the wood, hay, and the straw and all that, those are not works. Those are symbolic of works. He is giving a symbolism here to describe how at some point we are going to be judged based upon the things that we do, not for salvation. He's talking about something else. He's talking about rewards here. So it's an analogy. It's not a literal fire lapping up your works, because your works can't be burned. It's symbolic here of something that is going to happen. And the second reason it ties along with that, it's that this passage is about rewards. It's not about sin. It's not about purging people from sin. Purgatory, the Catholic idea of purgatory, is a way of purging remaining sins from a person so they can enter into the presence of God without the sins. This passage here has nothing necessarily to do with sin. It has to do with people's works. And it's not about going into the presence of God, but it's how many rewards are going to be given to that person. Even if the person has nothing, if it's burned and there's nothing left at the end, they still go into the presence of God. They're saved, yes, so is by fire. It means just barely. I mean, they just barely, because it's not their works that save them. It is their faith in Jesus that saves them. But what he's doing here is talking about rewards. A person with much left after the fire, which is kind of opposite of purgatory, because purgatory is you get rid of things in the fire. And this passage is about having things left, which actually turns out to be a good thing. So it's all backwards. This is about if you have more left after the fire, you have good works. You know, they've had good motives. You've done it for the right reasons, and they're good things that God wanted. You have them, you go into the presence of God. But if you're left with nothing, you still go into the presence of God. This is about rewards. And the third thing that we need to notice is that in this passage, it is the works that go through the fire, not the person. Purgatory is a person enduring the purging so then they can go into the presence of God. This passage has nothing to do with a person going through the fire, but it has everything to do with works going through the fire. Okay? And Paul is concerned with the quality of those works. He wants to see what sort it is. What sort are these works? What was the motives behind these works? So this is dealing with motives. It's an analogy. It's about rewards, not about eternal salvation. And it is the works that go through the fire, not the people. So I hope you've been able to see that this passage, which is one that's used in the Catechism of the Catholic Church to support this idea of purgatory, just simply doesn't talk about anything at all related to purgatory. So there you have it. Maybe we'll do some more videos later on purgatory. If you're interested in that, let me know. And God bless. And I hope that I'll see you next time.